Welcome. This is Boys to Men, powered by Navigating with Noel, which is NWN for short. NWN is an organization whose core business is to ensure growth and human development through learning, accountability, and networking, while sharpening the spiritual intelligence to foster a life-ready individual. In fulfilling its mandates, a sad discovery was made about raising of today's young men and boys leading to this program. Boys to Men is a solution-prone conversation designed to dissect and discuss salient issues pertaining to raising of boys to men. In the society today, we see a very conscious and deliberate effort at raising and empowering the girl child. From scholarships to etiquette training to financial empowerment schemes, sadly, you can hardly find any for the boy child. This is no competition or comparison of both genders, but the fact is something has to be done to raise men who will be responsible. Men indeed who are fit for the girls being raised. Already, there is a big lacuna between fathers and sons in households, churches, and even in institutions. There is hardly a relationship between grown men and the younger generation. Who else can raise a boy to become a man except a man? God promised in Malachi 4 to send Elijah, the prophet, to turn the heart of the fathers to the children and turn the children's heart to that of their fathers. It is in fulfillment of these that we are here to bridge the gap and turn boys to men. We'll go on a short break now, and when we return, our anchor, David Oputa, will be introducing the panelists. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. My name is Oputa David Michael, and this is still Boys to Men. So with me in the studio, I have some boys and a man who will be discussing on the issue today. So I'll start from my left.
Okay, my name is Newman Haruna, and I'm a student for the University of Technology, Mina, in the Department of Mathematics. And yeah, I'm a software developer currently. I'm building, and that's all I can say.
All right.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Newman.
Yeah,
Okay, let's go to my far right.
My name is Orefeoluwa Oladele. I'm a student of EXU, Ekiti State University. I'm doing statistics. Yes, I think I'm at third year now. So, but right now I'm just into data science. So,
Okay, welcome, Ola. And sir?
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Wole Dada. I'm a geologist by profession, and I work with one of the leading oil servicing company in the world, Schlumberger. I'm a field engineer, presently assigned to Gabon. I'm a father of three beautiful girls with a beautiful wife named Wole Dada. Love my family. Thank you very much as we progress.
All right, you're welcome. You're welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, Boys to Men. Sir, let me start with you. Let me ask, what is special about the boy child that we have to have a conversation around the boy child, Boys to Men?
Okay, boy child. When we look at the boy child, you discover that a lot of responsibilities lies on the boy child. But these responsibilities are not being taken care of. Let's take a good look at it. We are raising a girl child, but we are not concerned about the boy that is going to house the girl. This is a particular one that is very, very important. And for somebody to be the head of the family, needs to be spiritually sound. In terms of career, it needs to be sound. Physically, it needs to be sound. Mentally, it needs to be sound. But this is not getting the desired attention. And now we're training the girl child. The boy child is not attended to. And this boy child is the one that will manage the girl child. So you see that the boy child is very, very unique. And this particular gender is very, very important in home building, in the society, and the globe, in its totality. So that's what I can say for now. As we progress, we'll reel out more.
All right. And let me talk to the youngsters in in the studio. Newman, can you just tell me about generally relationship of young men your age and the older generation? How would you describe that relationship?
Well, speaking for myself, yeah. So, we're three boys, right? And I'm the middle child. And yeah, my mom didn't have the opportunity to raise a girl child, right? But then, our relationship with our dad, it's I'm looking for for a safe word, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm looking for a more simplified way to say it. Yeah. So no, I still want to speak based on how it is, but then our relationship with our dad is not so firm like that of our mom, right? So I have a very good relationship with my mother. We talk. We can the word for this generation, we use vibe. You understand? So we vibe. We actually have good conversations, good communication, but not so well with my dad, right? So I can literally stay a week, 2 weeks without having a conversation with my dad, right? And I'm not bothered, and I believe he's not bothered. I believe, you understand? So, and I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking for boys. Like, okay, the reason why we're here, boys in presently, in general, in this environment, in this society, because I've heard other case scenarios, I've heard worst case scenarios, right? And I'm like, okay, well, and that's majorly right now is definitely as a result of how it started, the foundation. So my dad was not really always at home. Probably that could also be part of it. He was not really, he was always in one state working, and we were always with our mom. So practically our mom trained us, right? My dad was around, yes, in our lives, yes, time to time. Even currently speaking, he's not even at home, right? So that could actually be part of the reasons why the relationship was not that firm. But now, as an example, we're building a relationship. Yes, we're actually working. I'm intentionally, so I'm trying to use the word intentional because I'm aware of this, and I want to build a relationship with my dad.
Okay. Let me ask Ola.
Yes, actually, like you said, it's a story that is very general among we boys, because my relationship with my dad is not that close. I have a better relationship with my mom. I think no matter, my mom is a very busy woman too. She's always going out in the morning, coming home late at night, but she always makes time for us. That sometimes she just decide to not go to work. She just sit down. She's a very good believer, so we spend time in the word together. We discuss. She comes to our school. She hasn't come to my university before. So, but I don't get that from my dad. You get? I think my relationship with my dad presently is just becoming better. Like you said, it got to a point that we just have to be intentional.
Okay.
Like when I was much younger, it was like we were we were not really close. Dad was busy, me playing. You understand? So it got to teenage years now. We began to be very emotional about things. And so sometimes you get into a heated argument, and sometimes you say some words, you be like, but because your mom is always there, so your mom actually understands you. Your dad does not really understand you. Sometimes he does guesswork.
Okay.
So so sometimes even when your dad wants to buy something from you, he has to ask your mom. You understand? So I think that is, so it got to a point where I told my dad, he was saying something about me, and I told you that, Dad, you don't know me.
Wow.
He just looked at me like, what did I say? But that was the truth. But he actually realized that he didn't actually know me. So it had to become intentional. So it got to a point my dad started to stay at home, take us out. But even in the taking us out, sometimes we can work together. We'll just be looking.
Perhaps already too late.
Yeah.
So what would you say to this scenario? And like they said, this is almost like out of 100 boys, this story would be like 90%.
This is serious. Actually, when we look at it very well, they give some vital points that I want us to look at it critically.
Okay.
And fathers in the house, they need to get into this. First, you discovered, like when we were growing up, my dad, they introduced us to the line of Christianity.
Okay.
But today, the iron hand is still there. But there was a gap that needed to be bridged. You heard from the two of them talked about having that closeness to their with their mother,
Yeah.
with their mothers. But for the father, it's a different ballgame. The fathers, they believe that, okay, I take care of my family, I make provisions for my family, but that key area, they forgot to take care of it. Let me take, for example, throughout my schooling, my dad never visited me in school.
Oh, so it's not an issue that is peculiar to present fathers.
It's not an issue that is peculiar. It's not that they don't make provisions. They make necessary provisions. But you see, there was a kind of fear that was created. I think when I was getting into the secondary school, my dad warned me. And you know what he told me? He said, look, as you are going to the school, I don't want to step that school.
Wow.
What he's saying is that don't go and spoil things, or don't be a bad boy, that they will now invite me to come. But eventually my dad was invited. There was a teacher, I think, if I could remember his name, my further mathematics teacher. I love that man and I give kudos to him. A good teacher, Mr. Ekundayo. He saw the way I was doing well. And he discovered that I don't have that mathematics textbook. So he said I should tell my dad to come. Lo and behold, I couldn't go home. I was like, how will I tell my dad that you need to come and... Because I did not know the actual reason why the man wanted to see my dad. And when I told, I could not even tell my dad. I had to tell my mom.
Wow.
To help me in telling my dad. My dad actually heard about it and he came. On getting to the school, he went to the man. And when he left, we didn't have any conversation.
Wow.
Now, the fear grew more. I did not know what the teacher told my dad. But eventually, when I got home, that was the first time my dad bought a textbook for me. And that's a distinction in mathematics, A by A.A. Adelodun. What am I saying here? Fathers are trying. Yeah. But in the area of getting that intimacy with their boys, to telling them, you see, there are some things women cannot tell the boy, the male child. They can care for the male child, but they cannot instill some things that is only known by men to the male child. So, it's only the man that can do this job, but when they are not available, they only make provisions and go. Some men are iron men in the house. The child cannot even open their mouth and talk to them. It's not they are not good fathers, but the way they grew up. And that's why we are trying to see how we can bridge the gap. The male child needs the father's advice. The male child needs the father to grow. Permit me to use this analogy. Yes, we need God. The analogy I want to use is the 5 fingers.
Okay.
When we look at these 5 fingers, it represents the stages of our life. Now, if you look at this smaller one, this is the smallest. It represents the infant. Hardly, it cannot do anything except with the support of others. But if you look at this ring finger, it's close to this. But you know what? It can only help this one. It can assist. Okay, help me to do this. You help. When you want to grab, it helps to grab. But when you now get to this finger, this one, I call it the teenage stage. But you see this one, the middle finger, you see, is the tallest.
Okay.
He has the largest responsibility. Becomes the man. But before it gets to this stage, you see this particular one, there are some experience that is needed. If these experiences are not gathered, it cannot work well with this. And that's where men are. This one represents the old age. And tell me, this particular one, any of these fingers cannot work without this one. And this represents the Creator, which is our God.
Wow.
Because all this cannot function without this. So basically, for the boys to thrive well, they need a father. But the father needs to be available. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Let me go back to Newman and Ola. So, when you see a lot of today's men and fathers, do you think that they are generally worthy examples that you would want to emulate? Would you like to replicate how you were raised to your children?
The kind of relationship I want to have with my son is the kind of relationship where he gets into trouble and I'm the first person he calls, right? By the grace of God, that's the kind of relationship I want to have with my son. I want to be that kind of father that is always available,
Okay.
right? So, and that's for me I'm not saying my dad didn't do well. My dad did, my dad is one of the people I look up to, right? My dad is strong. My dad has a firm heart. My dad motivates me, right? Sometimes when we have discussions, I'm always there's a way he stirs up energy in me, and the little time we get to just discuss about a few things and all that, he's always trying to be practical and trying to stand as a pillar, and that's what he is actually. But then, speaking based on the facts of how it started, just like what Mr. Wole said about you're not able to present matters to your dad going through your mom. That happens a lot in my house. It's now that we can now present matters to our dad, right? It's even became a problem when my dad is constantly telling my mom, let these children not use you as a point or as a medium to get to me. And it pisses him off, right? So me, myself, like I told you, I'm intentionally building a relationship with my dad. I had to, he doesn't like that. So I had to now begin to go in myself. I remember one time my mom telling me that I'm the only one that has even stood up to that challenge, and I can actually tell him things. So, and he has said it a good number of times that I can express myself. because this is something I intentionally took upon myself. So I don't want my children to intentionally look for a way to carve out a method to present themselves to me. You don't need to now relax and say, okay, how am I going to tell daddy this thing? Rehearse. Thank you. You know, sometimes before we present matters to our dad, we would have thought about it and balance it so that you will not, so that it doesn't go wrongly. Because there are a lot of times where how you plan it is not how it happens. You understand? But if communication is the root of any relationship, you don't need to actually prepare. You don't need to you just find yourself you express yourself naturally. You understand? And there's this and as a father, I believe we should actually understand emotional intelligence to be able to know how to respond to our sons or our children in general terms. So for me, yeah.
All right. What's your own way?
I think it's a big no.
Wow. Why do you say that?
There are a lot of things involved. Number one is, like, I think this topic is very, very important because it is like a high percentage of the population of boys actually passing through this.
Okay.
So because I don't want, so there will be a lot of similarities in our answers. Yes. So because I don't want my children to go through what I went through, because there's no emotional connection between you and your dad. Yet, so your dad is just there.
As the ATM.
So not really an ATM, but you're just like a member of the family.
Wow.
Yes, just a member of the family. So sometimes you just have to. It can be very serious. So when he was talking about trying to rehearse, it can be that serious, because you have to get to a point where sometimes to enter your house, it's a problem. if you have done something wrong, you understand? Because that, I don't know, maybe sometimes I don't really understand men. Because I'm just trying to be one now. Because sometimes I feel like maybe they enjoy being they enjoyed being the one to give commands, like the commander in chief, something like that. Because that's what I feel. Because I feel that, I did not know until a time when I actually saw my dad showing emotions, and I was like, is this my dad?
I've never seen him showing emotions before then.
My dad is always to himself. If he's at home, it's in his room, in his study. So most times, if he comes to his room, everybody don't know. He'll just switch to news, watching his news. And me, I don't have interest in news, so everybody just move. Everybody get busy. Yes. So I was that kind of person. And like he said, my own dad was somebody that was very, will I put the word, wise. Was very wise, because there are some issues. By the time they table it before my dad, the way he breaks down, the way he provides solutions, sometimes used to blow my head. So and because of the fact that I knew some of his school friends, they used to come around, used to go and on their platform, you see them talking about great things about my dad. My dad was a star in school. He won awards for the school, table tennis, even intellectually. My dad is astounding. My dad had first class in UI. He's somebody and that's another problem. Another problem is the fact that you now have to meet up standards to that. Like my dad, anytime you go to school, just like, remember, I know you used to hear when people are talking about me. You have to, if not anything, you have to be, even if it's not much, you have to be more than me, small.
Okay.
Do you know? So sometimes that puts pressure on children. So you are looking at how you can meet up to the standard, and there is no connection. You know, it's like you have a role model, and you are not free to talk to the role model. You cannot ask the role model. So how do you do this? The role model does not give you steps, no tips. Do you understand? And you know, mothers always, like, what I'm able to decipher is that mothers always try to build their male child to how will I put it now, to succeed where they feel their husband is not okay. They try to, you know, model you to actually, you understand. So I feel that I will be a kind of father that will like to share my experiences. Like, my daddy hardly shares his experiences. The only time you know about your dad is because my dad is a minister in church. So it's when he's talking about his life on the pulpit. That was when I started knowing he doesn't sit down and talk about his secondary school life. You know, my mom is always somebody that she always talks about school. So you feel like, okay, she was also a student. Do you understand? But you see, sometimes men always behave like they just became men. Like, you don't know how they grew. And yes, so I think fathers they always like to hide their vulnerabilities. So actually I've got you to understand that, see, these vulnerabilities are actually what helps the younger generation. We can actually be strong where he was weak.
And learn from their mistakes. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. I love this conversation, man. Look, let us not forget some facts. Fathers, they are doing the wonderful job.
True.
What we need to, why we are here is to balance it. Make the male child to understand, they'll see the reason why they need to go to the father, and why the father needs to come to the son, so that gap will be bridged. Permit me to say this. You see, most things our mothers do, they got those tips from the father. We might not be there when they discuss with the father.
Okay.
And the father would provide a solution. I was listening to a man of God recently. I've forgotten the name of the man now. It was challenging the fathers. And I want to put the word to us now and the fathers out there. Be available. You see, you give the money to the mother, go pay the school fees. The mother pays the school fees. The children sees the mother paying the school fees. We need clothes. The mother gets the money from the father. She buys the clothes. But the kids, the male child, is seeing the mother, the one buying the cloth, whereas the money is coming from the father. So the point is, in order to balance it, that is, you need to be available for your sons. Like the question that was asked, whether I would prefer to raise my son like the way my father raised me, is yes with amendment.
Okay.
Why did I say that? When I was growing up, you know, the fear of God was instilled into me by my dad.
Okay.
And you know, when you instill the fear of God into your children, as they grow, that fear will be there. And that was what was in me I move with a lot of friends. Those that smokes, those that does a lot of things, womanize, so many things. But I didn't. So many of my friends, they know me. They say, it doesn't drink, it doesn't buy. You understand? Why? This was because there was a fear that was instilling. If I remember, if I've done something wrong, early in the morning when we are having the devotion, my dad, you're the one that my dad will ask to open the Bible. And he will tell you where to open. Let me say this in Yoruba. And when you are reading, I say, Ọmọ tí a bá ń bá wí tí ó wá ọrùn kì, yóò parun lójijì láì sí àtúnṣe. Definitely you are talking to yourself because you knew what you did yesterday. So the fear was there. So the dad is putting the fear of God in us, but there are some areas that I remember when I wanted to get married, I shared my dreams with my dad. And at that particular time, I didn't have a job. But when I shared with, he saw the future, I think. And he said, okay, go ahead. That was the time we started conversation, that we started talking. Up to now, we're communicating. So that communication gap was there. And that's exactly the point I'm trying to iron out here today. That is, be available for your sons. You need to be available for your sons. Because this is very, very important. Yes, you pay the school fees. Yes, you buy the clothes. Yes, you provide the information the mother needs. You provided for your house. But you might be there. But if you are not available, it's going to be a very big issue because that is part of your life. That is very, very important. And that's the gap we are trying to bridge. There are some silent jobs that dads are doing that are not open to the boys. And because the dads are not available, not that they are not there. They are there when the needs arises. But they are not available for the sons to have deep conversation. And this conversation has a lot to do in building the man you want your son to become. You need to provide him with it. Like I was discussing with my dad about politics. And he shook something into my brain. Said, be careful when you're in politics. That there is a scar on his leg as a result of politics. That kept ringing. I remember the day my dad, my wife said something when I took her to my dad. And he said, a man who does not know and behaves as if he knows, knowing fully that he does not know, is a compound fool. My wife said she cannot forget that statement. You see, there are some things that you will share with your son that the mother cannot do. The way the mothers, they share a lot of things with the female child is the way the men supposed to share with it. And let us not forget this. We are in computer age. For the young men that are planning to get married, I advise, do everything at the right time. Do it on time. Don't be at the first generation of computer and your children are operating at the 17th generation of computer. That's a very big gap. Don't go in a situation that you are operating far behind. Imagine a situation that a child brings home assignment and the father cannot attend to it. Then you are giving your job to another person. These are the places that these things start from. So as men, we need to come back to our sons, talk to them, have the conversation, share your experience. You know, in our culture, I remember those days when we were growing up in our primary school days, Fridays, they would sit us down under the tree. And these fables, they tell us a lot of stories.
Yeah.
So, if you are a man, you cannot sit down. You want your child, you want your son to grow and mentor the home the way you are mentoring your home. But you are not allowing him. You are not giving, oh, okay, you'll be the one to coordinate the Bible study tomorrow morning. You'll be the one to coordinate the prayer this night. You are not doing that. Then you are not putting him in the pattern. You don't share how you are making your money, how you spend your money. You don't share with the son. How will he become stronger? Then he will learn from outside. Okay. That's why you see a father who is a pastor and the son is a drug addict.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So you mentioned, you spoke about culture earlier. So I just wanted us to talk about culture. You know, we've seen cases where they say the man shouldn't go to the kitchen, boys don't cry, men don't cry. And that's one of the reasons why men kind of shut themselves out from their children, and their kids cannot see them being hurt or how they are feeling. You know, what do you say about such things?
Well, culture is culture, but there are some things we need to amend when it comes to culture. And that's part of the things we'll talk about. Yeah, we're talking about here. You see, a male child, when you don't train the male, well, maybe from my side, I only have one sister and 5 boys. I remember visiting my first brother, our firstborn, and the wife was attending to the baby, so she left the amala on fire. And quickly, I finished it. I finished turning the amala, and I put off the fire for her to come back and serve the food. And when she came, I said, wow, that our parent tried.
Yeah.
That even my immediate elder brother does the same, even our second born. So maybe because we are men, we are used to that system. Even in my house, my wife knows this better, and some of the guys that stay with us. I am the specialist in plantain frying. So in plantain frying, I'm a specialist, and they know that one. You see, going to the kitchen, getting emotional, there are a lot of things when the male child grows up, and based on what he has been exposed to. Sometimes it's not the problem of the male child, and that's why this kind of program is coming up to address those situations. The way the father was taught is now pushing it across to the male child. And the issue is some of the male children didn't have the opportunity to ask questions based on relationship they have with their father. Some of them will have been so inquisitive to ask, okay, Dad, why is this like this? Why is this like this? And those questions I was privileged to ask. Not my dad, my grandfather. I think though I was still very, very young then, I will ask questions. So this area of male children doesn't visit kitchen, only the female children. We are only preparing the female, but we are not preparing the male to manage the situation. So this area needs to be corrected. It needs to be balanced. A male child should be able to sweep. A male child should know how to fetch water if there is no water. So, and that will help the male child for example, he grows up, he got married, and the wife is not able to do some things, then the male child can, now is a husband. But when they are not well prepared and the situation arises, that's when you see different kinds of divorces we're having today. Because you cannot see a situation that a father, a boy that has not been groomed, in knowing not to beat a woman, now this one grows up, he just sees it that, no, I can beat anything. And that's why you see a lot of things happening today. So this kind of erroneous beliefs needs to be corrected. We need to balance the equation. What the girl child is doing at home, the boy child should be able to do such.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you guys the questions individually, but then So in the absence of your relationship with your father, were you able to replace that father relationship with someone else? Was it, or like he said, he had to meet his grandfather? At least there was still that father, that man in the picture. So were you able to? Is there any man who stepped in at some point, or who you can talk to outside or something?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
So, okay. Yeah, so I got to experience the kind of father and son relationship I would have loved to have with someone else, of course. And recently, that happened. And it's made me to begin to like retrace back my thoughts, and then I realized some of the things that didn't happen. So sometimes you don't actually know what you're missing until you try it or you get it. So and that became very it was so sad, right? Like what Mr. Wole said about your dad letting their sons in on information about how they handle things, their life, expenses, finances. I didn't have that kind of conversations with my dad. I actually have some conversations I had with my dad that meant a lot to me. I remember when I was going to school, right? When we had discussions, even at some points, we had some kind of discussions that stayed in my heart. Like, oh wow, I can actually have such discussions with my dad. But then, now the relationship I have with someone else is more deeper, right? And it has really opened my eyes to, and that's why I was speaking. Well, that's why when you asked if I was going to raise my kids that way, and I was like, no, because the whole father controversy that the society has, because we see it a lot in social media where people post that why everything the man does, the credit goes to the woman and all that and sometimes it gets to me. I'm like, so will I still join this trend? Will I still join this crowd or this society? This thing society has impended on us, right? But then, no, I don't have to. The statistics does not cover all. There are actually a good number of exemptions, right? So, and I've had that experience in my life now.
Okay. Have there been? Is there let me not use the word replacement, but are you experiencing it somewhere else?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I will put it now. Actually, it's my uncle.
Okay.
Yes. So, like he said, you actually do not know what you are missing until you get a taste of it. Okay, I feel like, so, this is what I'm missing all this while.
Wow.
So, but actually, something happened. So, I think I did something wrong and told my dad. I was angry. The house was scattered that day. So, my uncle came and he just took me out of the house. We just went for a ride in his car. And he spoke to me. He was very, very cool-headed. He came down to my level.
Okay.
And he was open. He cleared me. As in, I've really, since that time, I don't think I've had that kind of experience before with somebody. It was so deep. Like he became like my friend. So since that time, and there were certain things he told me, gave me some, it's like guidelines. And those guidelines, I don't know. It's not like I told myself that, okay, these guidelines that my uncle gave me, I'm going to stick to them. Do you understand? But based on the fact that he connected to me on a different level, I just naturally,
it's easy,
yes, to follow those guidelines.
Okay.
And I feel like that's the kind of relationship I feel like
having with your son.
yes, because sometimes your dad most times dad just give commands.
Okay.
Yes, they just give commands. They just drop it. Okay. You do this, you do that. So sometimes you need to connect.
So final questions for you guys before I come back to him for the final solution. They said there are statements like, of course, God is our Father, and we see God as our Father. So in respect of earthly fathers, did it in any way affect you seeing God as a father? If you try to picture God as an earthly father, I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say. Did your relationship or lack of relationship with your father in any way give coloring to the relationship you have with God as a father? Okay.
Actually, it does, because it's, how will I put it now? It's just like me now. It feels like I cannot really appreciate the value, the connection that the son has with his father, or the father has with his son. So now, being a Christian, are you telling me, okay, God is my father? You get? So I feel like I see God like my earthly father. So, I just feel like the Bible is just where God just gives command. Just try to do what God has asked you to do. So, sometimes when you actually do what your father tells you to do, and he notices them, sometimes fathers want to give you a reward, like an incentive. So I think that is actually what is affecting Christianity today. We see God like the earthly father. He gives us commands. So we feel like the only time that we can meet up to God's standards is when we do those commands. That is the only time that God can bless us. But actually it's not so, because the blessings are already there. Do you understand? Okay.
Okay. For me, nothing has actually affected my relationship with God. Both the relationship I had with my dad, or I have with my mom, or with anybody, right? Maybe that's because I'm not seeing God in human perspective. God is a spiritual entity, right? So my relationship with God has just been for me, right? So I don't know if I would have had any worse case scenario, or a more traumatizing relationship with anybody. Maybe my dad was like something else, and I don't think it would have, I don't know, because that didn't happen. But yes, as a father, yes, God as a father, no earthly relationship has been able to provide color. So I've seen God as a father in, I like to put it like, for who he is. Yes. So it's more comforting, right? So God as a father to me has just covered everything.
I'm glad you guys have certain views on
Yes,
this, because
yes.
because one rule doesn't fit all. For some, it affects them so much
Yes,
that
yes,
the
yes.
way their father
But
has behaved to
yes,
them,
they now
that is how they color
yes, yes.
God. And for some, they're able to take
Yeah.
solace in other places. But because of time, let me come to you and let's wrap it up. So what is the solution? What do we do? Advice for young people, including those who do not see God like a father anymore, just because, like he said, he gives commands and then do his will, and then you get blessing. And then advice for the fathers too, who are also listening. Aside from just
Thank
you
you
know,
very much. I really appreciate this time and this moment.
to
Okay,
take that line
again. Okay, the best legacy you can have in life is God. And this legacy, if you get it from your father or any of your parents, hold on to it. I can tell you today, this legacy was handed over from my grandpa to my dad, from my dad to us. Why am I saying this? I grew up to understand some things from my grandfather. There was a time a child was sick to the point of death. He prayed for the child, and the baby resurrected. Now, this particular thing, growing up seeing such, how does it happen? How does it help your faith when you see such? I remember when our grandpa died, the whole family gathered together. They got, because we are CAC background, they got some drums of water and they fetched water into it and prayed into those waters. So anybody that comes to condole, they'll come to fetch part of the water. I remember some people, they said they have some sickness, they'll come and fetch those water. Those are legacies handed over. And I remember there was a time, my dad's brother, there was a dispute on a farmland, and somebody put this juju, something, on a tree that was cut in the farm, and the man did not want them to remove it. And they got there, they prayed on it, and they just removed it. They prayed on water, and they just removed it. I grew up with so many things like that we pray, and prayers are answered. So when I grew up with this built up my faith that yes, if there is somebody that is answering these guys, this same person can answer me, and he has been answering me. So that's why I said the best legacy you can have in life, and it's going to be given to you. If it's given to you by your father, you have the best legacy. It is God. So that's a line. Now coming to solution. Boys are home, and we that were here, I want to challenge us. See, we have seen it, there is a gap that needs to be bridged. One of the problems is we don't ask questions. Ask questions. Take time out. We too can study our fathers to see where they listen and talk to them. Like you have said, you've preferred a solution. You were willing to do it. And you spoke with him, and you saw it that daddy was willing. It was even willing. When, you see, he's ready. Nobody is an island of knowledge. He too, the daddies, they don't know what they are missing by not relating with the sons, because that's part of their mental health. It takes care of their emotions. I remember I faced a challenge some years back, and I spoke with my dad. He said, calm down. I serve a living God, and He's going to attend to the situation. And that watered my spirit. You understand? So, we too, we should learn to approach our Father. And fathers, please, daddies out there, come down to their levels. And if you are not up to their level, try to build up yourself. I spoke with the age. I spoke about the age, the stages when I was talking earlier. This is the stage, the men. You have the highest responsibility. You need to care for the family, for your wife, for the children. You need to ensure that their relationship with God is sound. You need to build their spiritual intelligence. You need to build their financial intelligence. You need to build their emotional intelligence. And how can you do this without associating with them? This cannot be done in isolation. The young boys, they need the fathers. The fathers, they need the young boys. When you talk together, you discover they are your friends. Young guys that are planning to get married, try to get married early so that your age bracket will not be too far from your children to talk to them. That's one of the things we suffered from. When the father is 60 and the boy is 8, what kind of conversation can they have? But when you look at the age bracket, if it's not so far, if the father is still operating with the computer age of 7 and the child is operating at 10, they can still see a bridging moment. But when the gap is much, you might not be able to cope with them. We need to bridge this gap. We need to help the sons. We need to prepare the sons for the ladies we are preparing, so that at the end of the day, the sons we don't prepare, we continue to beat the ladies we have prepared. That is, be available. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, we have come to the end of our conversation today, and we're able to establish that in a large number, young boys rarely have a deep conversation or relationship with their fathers. And this is sad, but all hope is not lost. Men, fathers, we have to do more than just meeting monetary needs of our children. We must make deliberate and conscious efforts to raise our sons by meeting them, knowing them, and having a relationship with them. And you don't have to wait until it's too late. So let me appreciate our guests in the studio, Newman,
Thank you.
Orofe, and Mr. Wole.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. See you next time. Thank you for joining us.